Welcome to Timeless Wisdom for Seniors, the place where we celebrate a life well lived, and the joy of making every year count. Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than you should have, hoping that love alone could fix everything, even when it left you feeling humiliated or filled with self-doubt? This story isn't just about a man and a woman. It's about the universal struggle for dignity, self-love, and the powerful realization that our worth doesn't come from someone else's approval. As we age, we're often tempted to prove ourselves, to show we're still needed or lovable. And in that pursuit, we sometimes sacrifice our peace and happiness. But what if love should never cost you your self-respect? In this video, you'll follow the emotional journey of an older man who gave everything to a relationship that slowly wore away at his confidence. Despite his devotion, he found himself diminished until he summoned the courage to walk away, reclaim his identity, and rediscover the value he thought he'd lost. Why should you keep watching? Because the lessons he learned are not just powerful, they're essential, especially for those who've experienced the pain of growing older and feeling invisible. By the end, you'll understand the true meaning of self-love, how to recognize when a relationship is draining your spirit, and why choosing solitude can sometimes be the most healing decision of all. This is more than a story, it's a life-changing message for anyone ready to reclaim their worth and embrace their true value at any age. If you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and click the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos. Your support means so much. If this video resonates with you, please like and share it, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's begin. In the beginning, everything felt like a beautiful second chance, an unexpected gift that breathed new life into his world. It was as if he had stepped into a dream, one he thought had long passed him by. She showered him with affection and compliments that felt like sunshine after years of emotional winter. Her words were precise and gentle, almost as if she had studied his soul and knew exactly what to say to awaken the parts of him that had gone quiet. She called him strong, capable, and wise, said his age brought a rare charm and presence no younger man could match. He began to believe in this new version of himself, desirable, needed, and worthy of love once more. Her gaze made his heart race. Her smile carried a warmth and flirtation that drew him in, and every movement she made seemed filled with grace and intention. She had a way of making him feel like he was the center of her universe, and so, he did everything in his power to keep her close. He poured himself into the relationship, bending over backward to ensure her happiness. To him, nothing was too difficult, too extravagant, or too much trouble. She wasn't just a partner, she was a spark of vitality, a reminder that he was still alive in every sense of the word. But as time passed, small cracks began to appear. At first, they were subtle, easily dismissed as quirks or misunderstandings. She started offering advice disguised as concern. "You really should take better care of yourself," she said one day. Her tone was light, but it carried an unmistakable undercurrent of judgment. "A man your age shouldn't be struggling with things like this." He laughed it off, brushing it aside. But the remarks didn't stop. They became more frequent, more pointed, always dressed as helpful suggestions but landing like tiny cuts to his self-esteem. Soon those suggestions turned into regular criticism. She spoke with an air of superiority, constantly reminding him, either directly or indirectly, that she was younger, more vibrant, and more desirable. He started to internalize her words, questioning his worth, seeing himself through the distorted lens she offered. Then came the most painful blows, ones aimed not just at his habits or lifestyle, but at his masculinity, his identity. She began criticizing their intimacy, using comparisons that shattered his confidence. "You're too slow," she said one night. "Predictable. I need more than this." She compared him to younger men, something he could never compete with no matter how hard he tried. It wasn't just his body she belittled. It was his soul. And yet, amid the criticism, she would occasionally offer just enough praise to keep him hanging on. She'd say no one else had ever loved her with such tenderness or commitment, that his care was something rare, something younger men could never provide. But even those compliments felt like traps. delivered with a smirk or followed by laughter that made his efforts seem foolish. What he didn't realize was that he was being manipulated, strung along by the hope that if he just loved her a little more, she'd love him back the same way. Still, he stayed. He believed that real love required patience, that if he just endured, she would see his worth. But with each passing day her words became sharper, her affection more distant. He no longer recognized himself. He saw only what she saw, an aging man clinging to a version of love that no longer existed. One night, after yet another argument that left his spirit bruised and his heart aching, he retreated to the quiet of his room. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt cold and unfamiliar. He sat in stillness, the echo of her cutting words replaying in his mind. They landed harder than ever before, not because they were louder, but because he had finally run out of excuses for them. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, studying the face that looked back. The man before him was tired, yes, but not broken. The lines etched into his skin weren't marks of defeat. They were the roadmaps of a life fully lived. Each wrinkle carried the story of struggles overcome, love given freely, and years of experience no one could take from him. And in that quiet moment, something within him shifted. He realized he had reached the end, not of his ability to love, but of his willingness to abandon himself for the sake of being loved. He had given so much of himself in hopes of being seen, but now he understood. If someone can only love you by diminishing you, it is not love at all. That night he made a decision, not from anger but from clarity. The next evening, with a steady voice and a calm he didn't know he still had, he sat down to speak to her. He told her how the relationship had eroded his sense of self, how her words had slowly chipped away at his confidence, how he no longer felt safe, respected, or seen. He told her simply and honestly that love should never come at the cost of dignity. She laughed it off at first, calling him dramatic. She dismissed his pain like she always had, but this time he didn't back down, he didn't plead, he didn't raise his voice, he just stood in the truth. And then, he walked away. There was no dramatic goodbye, no last-minute pleas, just a quiet departure and the closing of a chapter he had stayed in too long. As he stepped outside, he felt a wave of emotions crash over him. Sadness, yes, but also relief. A burden had lifted. For the first time in years, he felt free. The days that followed weren't easy. There were long stretches of silence, and the nights felt the hardest. The absence of her presence, the sound of her voice, the routine of shared space, left a void. Loneliness crept in, wrapping around him like a cold fog. But even in that solitude, something was different now. This wasn't the ache of being unappreciated or ignored. It was a quieter kind of solitude, one that allowed space for healing. Without her constant judgment hanging over him, he began to hear his own voice again. He started remembering who he was before he had tried so hard to be what someone else wanted. He reflected on his life, not with regret, but with understanding. With gratitude for the strength that had carried him through decades of both joy and hardship. He reached out to old friends, people who had known him before he started disappearing into someone else's expectations. He picked up forgotten hobbies, allowed himself to laugh freely, and found comfort in small, simple pleasures, the sound of birds in the morning, the scent of coffee, the softness of sunlight through the window. And slowly, the man in the mirror began to change. One day, standing before that mirror again, he saw something he hadn't seen in a long time. Pride, not in appearance or achievement, but in survival, in resilience, in the quiet dignity of someone who had walked through emotional fire and emerged whole. His age no longer felt like a liability. It felt like a crown. Each line on his face was a story, each gray hair a badge of wisdom. He no longer needed anyone's validation to know his worth. He had lived, learned, loved, and lost, and he was still standing. As time passed, life began to open up again. He traveled to places he'd only dreamed of. He allowed new friendships to blossom. He felt joy again, not the intense, consuming kind that leaves you desperate to hold on, but a calm, grounded joy that comes from within. He discovered that his worth had never been dependent on someone else's ability to see it. It had always been there, waiting to be claimed. What he once saw as the end of a relationship he now understood as the beginning of something far more important, a return to himself. He no longer looked back with bitterness. Instead, he viewed that chapter of his life as a turning point, a difficult, painful, but necessary experience that reminded him of a truth far too many forget: real love begins with self-love. From his journey, 5 powerful lessons emerged, lessons that can guide anyone, especially those in their later years, who are facing doubts about love, companionship, or self-worth. 1. The illusion of youth. It's easy to be drawn in by the excitement and vitality of someone younger. That sense of renewed life can feel intoxicating, but youth alone doesn't create deep connection. When we chase someone's energy instead of their character, we risk losing touch with our own. Genuine relationships aren't about keeping up, they're about showing up fully as you are. 2. The danger of compromise. Love should never ask you to trade your values or diminish your worth. Yet the fear of being alone can lead many into relationships where their spirit is slowly chipped away. Remember, love is not endurance. It is not sacrifice at the cost of self. It should be a sanctuary, not a test. 3. The power of self-love. To be loved in a healthy way, we must first embrace ourselves completely, our flaws, our stories, and our scars. Self-love is not vanity. It's the foundation for every meaningful relationship. Without it, we become vulnerable to accepting far less than we deserve. 4. The strength of integrity. A person's worth isn't defined by their age, their appearance, or their ability to meet someone else's expectations. It's measured by integrity, by staying true to who you are, even when it's hard. That kind of inner strength transforms pain into wisdom and loneliness into self-discovery. 5. The gift of reflection. Every relationship, no matter how painful, teaches us something. If we allow ourselves to reflect, we grow, we heal, we reclaim the pieces we once gave away. What feels like heartbreak today often becomes tomorrow's clarity. In the end, his greatest realization was this: he didn't need anyone else to complete him, he was already whole. Walking away wasn't just the end of a painful relationship, it was the beginning of a new chapter, one built on a foundation of self-respect, peace, and authenticity. He no longer looked for validation in the eyes of others. He found it in the quiet strength of his own reflection. Yes, there were moments of grief. Letting go of someone you once loved never comes without pain. But in that release, he gained something far more precious: freedom. Freedom to breathe, to grow, to be. Without apology, without shrinking, without pretending. He no longer saw aging as a loss. He saw it as a gift. Aging brought him clarity, depth, and the courage to stop chasing the fleeting and start embracing what's lasting: inner peace, wisdom, and self-love. He learned that true intimacy isn't about youth or physical perfection. It's about respect, reciprocity, and emotional safety. Most of all, he discovered that the most powerful love story you will ever write is the one you write with yourself. If you're still watching, I want to thank you for taking this journey with me. I hope this story has offered you more than just reflection. I hope it's given you strength. What part of this story spoke to you the most? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Just one insight, one takeaway. It might be the very thing someone else needs to hear today. If this message resonated with you, please like the video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe for more stories like this. Stories that honor the dignity, wisdom, and resilience of aging with grace. You are not alone. You are not forgotten, and you are absolutely worthy at any age. Thanks for watching, and here's to living lighter, freer, and happier than ever before.